I forgot. Here we go. You're seeing us before the countdown. All right. Happy Wine Wednesday. I know you guys saw us all before, so you already know the surprise that Dan's here. But anyways, I forgot to put my little graphic up. So we do okay. Now announcements. I'm going to try not to ramble and go all over the place. Hello to the people that are already with us. Today we have a full house. We've got Holly, Ray, Vince, Cheryl, and Dan all here to chit chat, open chat, Seahorse chat with you. So cheers to that. Also, we are back on Instagram. For some reason, it worked this week. I don't know when it will and when it won't, but we are in Instagram. So, Instagram watchers, you're going to see just Dan and Vince because they're in the middle of the screen and it's aspect ratio stuff. But bottom line is, if you want to see all of us and communicate with us, jump on over to YouTube and search Seahorse Whisperer, and we're the first thing you'll see on the page. Also about the page, just quick announcement. If you happen to notice the shop section on YouTube, I am so ticked off. I finally did some shirt designs and some merch designs, transferred it over to YouTube, and they pulled only the stickers. So just to let you know, there are a lot more cool designs. I want you guys to go, even anybody to buy anything, just go check out the designs. If you have design ideas, please let me know. Let me know what designs you like and stuff like that, because I did a bunch just to kind of feel people out so you guys can tell me what you like. And I'm going to show you one in a minute. But I'm wearing one of the shirts. Dragons are real right now. So it is real merch you can get. But anyway, so anything you see on the YouTube merchandise shelf, it's in a shirt version too, is basically the easiest way to put it. I looked it up. Apparently it's just got to catch up, like it's syncing, so the newer designs and stuff will come over eventually. I did post a picture. All right, hey Chimp, you voted with the YouTube logo. You like the YouTube logo. Gotcha. Yeah, always look on the community page also, because I do polls and show you guys some new designs and stuff like that. And don't forget, I think Holly is my first expert level member of the Seahorse Whisperer channel. So she's going to once we decide which one. The final thing about the shirts is, you guys, I would love to make a members only shirt, but I need your help with designing it. You guys got to help me. And just to really quickly, before we get into Seahorses, I promise, this is just a way, not only to support the channel, but I just like doing it. And these shirts won't, I won't just be pushing on you guys. It's that literally they'll be on Google and stuff. So somebody searching for a Seahorse shirt might buy it, help the channel, etc. Gets us better guests in, lets us do stuff at MACNA, lets us go to different, your club. If you want us to talk about seahorses at your club, that's how we get these things done, because Kelly's poor. All right. Anyways, real quick, just to show you guys, I think this is it. Right. So this is and this is not the website. There will be a website with actual Seahorse information. That's just not quite done yet. I know I keep promising. I'm working on it. I haven't had Dan to bug lately. He's been busy. So anyways, the website will be done soon. This is not the website. This is just merchandise, right? But if you go down, you can see this is the design that Salty was talking about. He likes the YouTube logo. And I'll show you the one that was, because all the shirts are not on Spreadshop also, I should have said. But anyways, so you go down, you can see the different stuff, different designs, blah, blah, blah. Who's Your Mama? We all know that one. And it shows you, but if you click these, then you can discover the different designs. 100% captive bred seahorses in my aquarium. So all of these designs can be put on a cup, shirt, anything like that. All right, I'm going to stop rambling about this. I do want to, and we got the beautiful, I do want to show you one last thing, because I want to know if you guys think this is a good idea or not. And then we're going to talk seahorses, I promise. So this is, let me see if I can find it.
So is that page linked to your YouTube or your Facebook or there?
Okay, I'll tell you in just a second. Let me show you these two shirts, just because this is the shirt that Salty did not like. I personally like this one better. I think it's cool. But, whatever. He likes the one with the YouTube instead. And then check this out, you guys. This is actual seahorses. All right. That red one right there is Sam's seahorse. That one's Lucy's seahorse. That one's my seahorse. That one's Lucy's. Those are Chris Carey's. And then on the back, we've got Lucy's. We've got a sea dragon from Seahorse Australia, a pipefish. I mean, so we can do designs with our actual seahorses.
Oh, I want my seahorses on a shirt.
Okay, you got it. All you got to do is get me really good pictures and help me design it is the bottom line. So that's available to anybody, just to let you know, if you want a design with and I can probably get it. And also, obviously, feel free to buy, but I am going to adjust the prices because they're kind of ridiculous. So the prices will be adjusted on this stuff. Now, just to answer Holly's question before we move on, is that I will put the link in the description, but if you look on YouTube, on Seahorse Whisperer YouTube, here we go. I'll just show you real fast. I'm sorry to bore you, Dan, here. I'm hurrying. All right, if you go to YouTube, there's the website that's almost done, but okay. So if you go to YouTube, Seahorse Whisperer, and obviously there's community, that's where you'll see like the poll, and I'm going to talk about that in a second too. But membership is where you join, and then the store is where you'll see these designs. But like I said, it only pulled over the stickers and the mugs and stuff instead of the shirts. I'm like, what the heck? But if you look right underneath from Spreadshop, you click there, and it's going to take you to that. And then if you just go to or click the link, then you're right at the homepage, and you can see all the designs. And you can order them right now. But like I said, I am going to adjust prices. And then when the website's done and the other shirts that from Printify are done, I will share that information with you guys too. So any ideas? I'm game to make it fun for all of us. Okay. Did I answer everything? I think I covered all of it pretty much. Anyways, any questions, let me know. And I don't want to make this like pushing merch and stuff. I just really enjoyed designing the shirts and, want to do something for all of us and for members and crap like that. All right, I'm done. And Seahorse Miami, thank you. Or Mammy, Seahorse Mammy, apologize. All right, the only other thing that I did want to share with you guys is last week we were talking about, and I was the only one that had ever seen a male snick a fry. And I was going through my videos, and check this out, you guys. I never even noticed it until I was watching these okay, ready? Here we go. Now I got to find it. Where is Julian's first batch? Nope. Sorry, guys. One second. Here it comes. All right. So watch in this. Can you guys see where my arrow is? Mm-hmm. Watch in this corner. Just watch. All right, ready? Did you see that?
Yeah.
He literally snicked a fry, and I didn't even notice when I shared.
An opportunist came along.
That's right. So that's the size of all of my updates. Other than we're just so glad to have Dan with us. And hey, Zen Ginger, Happy Wine Wednesday and National Margarita Day. Oh, I should have had a margarita. Dang it. But Vincent, go ahead.
Well, I just had someone text me. One of my seahorses I sold before Christmas was he put mysis in, and a bristleworm was on the mysis.
Oh no!
And the seahorse ate the mysis.
And so what happened?
Well, fine. Yeah, I guess.
Really?
Yeah, it just happened. He just texted me.
Well, what do you mean a bristleworm was on the mysis?
So he
like
got
a stinger,
the bristleworm.
Yeah, the mysis was on the floor. The bristleworm was on top of it.
Oh,
and when it snicked the mysis, it snicked the bristleworm.
It's got the bristleworm too.
Can't that scratch up their throats though?
I haven't had it happen. I don't have bristleworms.
It must have been a very small one.
Yeah.
If it had been a big one, it would have created a problem.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And that's interesting. Definitely keep us updated. And I did see that. Oh gosh, I suck at names.
Tana's here too. So.
Tana. Thank Holly's saving me because I can't say her name. I love it, but I can't. I spell my daughter's name Tanya, Tania. So she gets called Tanya, Tanny or something like that all the time. So sorry, I can't say her name. But since Dan's here, Holly, why don't you, or actually, before we get into Tana's issue, because Dan's here, I wanted to ask Cheryl, Ray, Vincent, Holly, Dan, anything that you need to share before we kind of dive in, or anything that you wanted to share.
No, we can talk about the mysids later. I can share that because I gave Dan and the others their live mysids yesterday.
Oh, and I want to share your treat that you did too, but we'll do that. We'll do that in a little bit. So Holly, what is the update from Tana?
Okay, so she had a female seahorse that she had about 4 weeks, is the beginning of the story. She got it from a local fish store, but it is captive bred from a large breeder of captive bred seahorses that supplies fish stores, I guess. So anyway, we all kind of agreed that it was sold to her too small and weak. Really, maybe you can share some pictures from the beginning if you
have them. I'll see if I can't find them. I'll see if I can't find them real quick to show Dan.
4 weeks in, she stopped.
Holly, did you send him to Wine Wednesday? Or
I sent him to you personally. Yeah.
Okay.
They'll be a while back because I sent you more today.
Okay.
You'll have to scroll back.
I'm scrolling. Go ahead.
So anyway, she had stopped eating suddenly after she'd had her for 4 weeks. And during that time, though, she'd grown, quite a bit. So she was taken good care of, and she was first sold to her. So
Dan, you see how fry looking that seahorse is?
Yep.
So that very beginning. And after she'd had her for 4 weeks, she'd started filling out and everything, but she'd stopped eating. And yeah, these are all my tanks.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to go the wrong way, apparently.
So this is the freshwater dip. But first, before she really had help, she was going to the local fish store for help with what to do, and ended up putting her in a hospital tank with Furan 2. And that was about that time that I started talking to her, and then also to Cheryl, and advised her to stay on the Furan 2 for 10 days, but she should do a freshwater dip and check for parasites. So that was the freshwater dip reaction. So then, along with the Furan 2, she went on the formalin 3-day treatment, every other day. So a few days ago, it was over the weekend, I think, Sunday maybe, was the end of the formalin treatments, and also the end of the Furan 2 ended a few days, I think, before that. And we kind of figured out she might not have a bacterial infection. She has really no signs of that we could see. The only thing is she's not eating, and she is
right. And that's the sorry. And Dan, that's the really weird part, is that she got the seahorse. She had a seahorse. She added this second seahorse from the same place, same supposed breeder, but it was through a store. And the seahorse was fine for 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden just stopped eating. But there was no other symptoms, no scratching, none of that. But then she did the freshwater dip, as Holly just said, reacted to it. And so she's done this treatment, but the seahorse just won't eat.
And I was hoping still active. Like she's swimming around, and she's acting normal. Like she's not acting like she's dying, like laying on the ground or things like, she's still swimming. And I had asked Cheryl about it too. I'm like, well, you've done all you can. I said, other than maybe try another freshwater dip if you think she's up to it, and see if she still has more parasites. But she is just not eating, even back in the tank now. And she's been back in the tank only a day, I think, now or two. She was in the hospital.
She actually does not look thin. The biggest thing that I saw when I first saw the first picture was that was a very small seahorse.
Right.
The head to body ratio is way off.
Yeah, I thought that
that animal's
too.
malnourished to start with.
I thought that
Did
too.
she buy this at the store or did she get it directly from the breeder?
Yes, it's from a
Store.
local fish store.
Do we know how long it was at the store?
No, we don't know that.
I don't know. She's on, so maybe she can comment and see.
Okay, that's one question I
Yep.
have. So Furon 2 was done, a freshwater dip was done at some point, and a
Mhm.
formalin immersion bath for 3 days was done. My next question is, was there a post treatment freshwater dip to see if she was cleaned up?
Not at
Ray
this
said that.
point, and
Ray
that's
said
what
that.
I said today too, and I
Okay.
think she said she thinks she's gonna try that. Because I said, if you think she's up to it, if she's strong enough, which
Okay.
it sounds like she is, then
So based on what I'm seeing, I don't know that the formalin immersion for 3 days is strong enough. I mean, you could be dealing with
That's what Ray said.
You could be
Sorry.
dealing with ciliates. You could be dealing with flukes. You could be dealing with a number of different things going on, or a combination thereof. So the freshwater dip is helpful, provided it was done to full term. I would follow the freshwater dip up the next day with a formalin dip, and formalin dip is different than the immersion bath,
yeah,
whatever you want to
well,
call it, for 3 days. And I'd also, given the history and the fact that nothing else has really worked, I would also try doing praziquantel.
Ah,
is
Praziquantel is going
that
to be
the
effective
goat
for flukes.
dewormer?
Huh?
Is that the
No,
goat
that's
dewormer?
you're
Which
talking
is
about
it?
fenbendazole.
right. Fenbendazole.
Praziquantel is specifically for treating flukes and tapeworms and things of that nature, basically cestodes. Um, But one of the things that can happen, and it's happened to me in the past, is where you can get an outbreak of flukes, and formalin will temporarily seem to help, but it doesn't really. Formalin is not strong enough to take out the flukes.
Mm.
So you need a stronger agent, and that's where praziquantel comes into play.
Are you just thinking that it's flukes because the formalin in the freshwater didn't have any effect? Is that, or is there some reason why you think it's flukes?
Well, there is, but it's a long, convoluted reason, if you will.
Okay.
Um,
Just
we're coming from a
you know
breeder that
things.
primarily supplies commercial stores, so they don't have to deal with the retail
Yes.
people. Okay, so they're not used to dealing with a lot of one-on-one fixes, most likely. Not to say there's anything wrong with a breeder. I'm not trying to imply that. I'm just putting a picture together.
Mm-hmm.
The animal was
Mm-hmm.
in a store, exposed to other things in the store. Whether it was in a separate tank or not, you still get cross-contamination issues. And then
Right.
what's been done thus far has not been helpful. Furon 2 is a very mild antiparasitic, um, and it would be helpful if we were dealing with uranemia type stuff, if you will. The freshwater dip obviously showed something is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the formalin immersion bath had no significant impact. So that tells me we need to go to something stronger to fight what we're dealing with. And
Gotcha.
that either has to be I hate doing freshwater dips too often, too close together. I've found that to be problematic. But I'd be more inclined to do Furon 2 dips. Excuse me, formalin dips, and treat with praziquantel and see if we can clean the animal up to where we get a good freshwater dip without a reaction.
And quick question, because Ray said like 10 of the things you've said last week, and we were all like, oh, Ray. He was right about everything. Good job, Ray.
Never right on
But
Mm-hmm.
well, you were right about a lot. But I did have a question, because when she had the seahorse in the formalin, Ray was saying that it's not strong enough. It's obviously not working. It's not strong enough. So he was saying he would prefer to take it out and do a freshwater dip. Can you go straight from formalin to freshwater dip though,
Yes.
or is that dangerous? You said cleanup. Okay, no danger. Got it. And it's interesting to me too that the seahorse wouldn't even take live foods, right, Holly?
Yeah,
I mean,
she had
she
live
tried
food
live
in with
foods.
it, and it won't eat
So,
the
because
live
I was
food.
trying to think, yeah,
It'll
last
watch
week when I
it.
didn't have you, I was
Well, remember this.
trying to think of like the B12 stuff and the garlic stuff, but it doesn't seem like that would even
Okay.
help. Go ahead.
What's the number one cause of almost all illnesses and diseases?
Bacteria.
Bacteria?
Inflammation.
Yeah. Inflammation,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, inflammation causes problems. Okay. So when you get a parasitic load, you get inflammation. Now, depending upon where that inflammation is, it can make it extremely uncomfortable for that seahorse to snick food. Thus, no matter how enticing it is, just like Ray with his toothache, he may not be, overly joyful in crunching on some hard food right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so the seahorse could be in the same situation. And you got to remember too, in the process of killing these little guys, you often create inflammation as a result of the treatment temporarily
Oh, yeah.
until that's why I tell people when you do a freshwater dip, wait 24 hours before you gauge how effective it is because you need a chance for that inflammation to recede. So,
Huh. That's
you know,
really interesting. Go ahead, sorry.
what I suspect is going on is somewhere in the oil cavity is inflammation causing this seahorse not to even want to snick at something.
And that's why it's watching it, maybe even chasing a bit, but not snicking.
Correct.
Okay.
It's because it hurts. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
One of the things, Dan, too, she's not trigger breathing. And she's actually, her respiratory rate has appeared to be quite normal throughout all of this, which usually it starts to deteriorate too when you've got a.
Well, that's the other thing is it's funny because when they get a fluke infestation, that's usually in the gills, but the way that they present in doing things is a little bit different than when it's a ciliate issue.
Yes.
So, my gut's telling me that we're dealing with a fluke thing, but that's my gut. That's not a scientific thing. That's just experience in dealing with them and seeing them and dealing with the issues.
Well, as I said last week, you're my, we were talking about how people can have different, ideas or theories or whatever, and they can all kind of be right, but Dan's the end all stop. That's right.
No, I wouldn't say I'm the end all, but I have had a little bit of experience.
You are. So you would say at this point, she should, instead of just letting her back in the tank and not eating and kind of going, downhill,
Do the
you would go
freshwater dip.
Well, here's the thing. You've got to look at always when the first rule when you're treating something is number one, do no harm. Okay. That's the first rule. That's in basic medicine, if you will. The second thing is you got to look, the pros and the cons. If she stays in the display tank, what's the odds of her getting better and having a successful outcome versus doing something proactive to try to fix the problem and get her back to where she can eat? So, the way I look at it, I would want to try to do something to bring her back. I don't think she's going to long-term do well in the tank. I think she's going to continuously slide downward.
Well, and she's still not eating, so she's not fixed.
Yep.
So you're saying go ahead, dip to see if there's still a reaction. Whether there is or not, she should get praziquantel and do that treatment.
I would get Prazipro is an easy one to find and to use, and just follow the directions on the label.
Okay, so you don't have to do the different 10-day thing like you do with the other stuff. This is you follow the instructions.
Yeah, I don't have the instructions in front of me at the moment, and it's been 5 years since I've done it. So,
right.
But you can follow the labeling. The difference is if you're doing water changes, you've got to reintroduce the amount that you changed out in the water. So if, for example, it says to add 10 mLs to a 10-gallon tank, then if you change out 50%, after the 50%, you need to add 5 ml back in.
Gotcha. Yeah. Tana said she got them on a Friday, or no, the store got them on a Friday and she got them on Saturday. So they were only there for a day.
Yeah.
And the Seahorse did well for 4 weeks, but still, like you said, I was trying to explain last week that a lot of times it's really hard to pinpoint what happened. And Ray's right that usually it's something to do in the tank, organic, something stressing the animal, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of chance that, like in my case, when I had seahorses that had it because of a heat spike, but they didn't have the problems for 3 or 4 weeks. So she got the seahorse, and 3 or 4 weeks later, there's a problem. It still could come from the fish store, right?
Yes.
Well, it could have, but remember this: that the effects of stress on the seahorses often creates a delayed effect. Okay.
Right.
So what we used to see with wild caught seahorses is that they would get captured, they would get handled, they would get shipped, they would go from a wholesaler to a retailer to the customer, and the customer after a week would all of a sudden lose the animal. Well,
Right.
during that process, the animal was stressed and was exposed to different things. And it's just like if you go and see somebody who's sick, that doesn't mean you're going to be sick the next day, but it might be 3, 4, 5 days down the road, and all of a sudden you have what they had. There's, you have incubation times, but you also have an immune system that has been weakened that tries to fight it for a while. And the seahorse immune system, we know, is a weird one. It could just be a delayed effect that's taking hold. And something like flukes, for example, a seahorse can live with flukes, but if that colony of flukes grows and becomes excessive, then they cannot. So the animal could have already had stuff already, and it was just a time bomb waiting to go off. And the other thing I look at from the get-go is looking at the seahorse. When I look at the head-to-body ratio, I see that the animal is malnourished, or as a young seahorse, and that's where you see the head's bigger than the body in terms of proportions. And I look at the body shape. It's not that the animal was skins and bones, if you will, but still, when I look at the shape of the animal without knowing the size, I say that animal's not mature enough to be sold yet.
That's what I said.
Yeah, that's what I had talked to her about when she first sent me the picture, and that's why I sent her the picture that Kelly showed briefly of one of mine I had raised at about the same size lengthwise, but the body shape was different. And like you said, the head, I said,
the age really doesn't come into play because remember this, the age does not always come into play because, depending upon how they're cared for, how much feed they've got, and, stocking densities and all kinds of other factors. I've had seahorses I've sold at 3 months. It looked like some people's at 5. And I've also had batches where I was ready to sell them, but I waited because they just didn't progress fast enough. And I waited to 4.5 weeks before I sold them. So, I don't go by age. I go by looking at the animal and determining it that way.
And Ray, you found on the org. What did you find? Hang on, Ray. What did you find on the org?
Well, that's. I'm trying to think who put the original thing up there. I think it was Ann that had a list of the medications and all the different ways to use the medications. And for the Prezi, that's it's recommended to feed it to the brine, and then I guess feed to the seahorses afterwards. But I've done an awful lot of investigation with brine over decades, and for brine to take up anything, it pretty well has to get any decent amount. It has to be an emulsion that they can take, or have it bonded with something like using focus to food, that particle that the Artemia then will take up. But
in this case,
very little actually gets transferred.
In this case, though, the animal's not eating, number one. Number two, I agree with oral ingestion for treating tapeworms, but we're dealing with primarily in the oral cavity and in the gills. And in this case, bath therapy should be most effective.
Yeah.
Because Prezi can be used as bath therapy.
She didn't have any instructions for doing it in a bath.
I have those instructions somewhere. I will make sure to have them by next week, and of course, put them on the website, or I'll try to even post them.
I was going to say she probably needs it soon, so maybe if we could find something and share a link for her, or.
Yep. I won't be able. I likely won't find it like while we're live right now, because I've got it all in Google Docs and it's everywhere. But I will get it to you, Holly.
Or someone can tell me, and I can forward it to her.
That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do.
Well, the problem we have today with the directions is that Praziquantel, for example, I got into an argument with the company way back when, because they took the how much milligrams per ml or whatever off the label, and they only tell you how much to put into a tank. So I got into the argument I got into them was, if I'm trying to give a certain amount, how am I supposed to be able to do that? Then they basically just didn't care. Most of these manufacturers are doing that now, with fish medicines. They're not telling you how much there is. They're just telling you how much of theirs they want you to give.
And she's asking too, where can she find it?
Well,
Oh,
Prosy
it's
Pro
online.
should be
Yeah.
able to be found locally in the fish stores, a bunch of different places, but if necessary, online. Um,
So it's called Prosy Pro.
yep.
Yeah, I've used it. I
I've
don't think
never
with
heard of it.
Seahorses, but I've used it. That's it right there.
Okay.
Prosy Pro.
I'll write it down and
Yeah,
hopefully
Prosy Pro is Prosy Quanto.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's different, when you look up NOGA's directions, there's all kinds of different possible protocols. And for monogeans, which we're most likely dealing with, he's got 3 different ones ranging from 10 milligrams a liter all the way up to 100 milligrams a liter, depending upon the animal and what you're treating. But
sorry. Go
but
ahead.
in this
Sorry.
case,
Go
what I
ahead,
can
Dan.
tell you from experience with seahorses, the directions on the label for praziquantel is sufficient for treating gill flukes.
And this is an overall thing here, but Ray sent me this link. Holly, I'll make sure you have it, and then I'll back up because I have the actual instructions from like the old school breeders. So I'll find it, give it to you. But this
I'm going to tell you, go with the
kinda
directions on the bottle.
cover it.
Don't go with anything
on
else.
the label.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Very good. Trust that. I gotcha. And okay. Well, at least we have a starting, a further point for Tana. Sorry that, you're going through this, but hats off to you for helping this seahorse. Fish, go ahead.
On the where can I get? Did anybody look to see where they could buy it right off the get go?
Yeah, Amazon.
And
I
then,
just showed.
Okay.
and yeah, you showed the Prosy Pro, and you said you can buy it at local fish stores too, or online.
Yep.
So I think since
Sometimes.
you showed it, she could probably Google it or go to her fish store and get it. And since she can follow the directions on the bottle, that makes it
Yep.
simpler.
That's also found in both fresh and saltwater stores.
Yep, I think I used it on, I think angelfish, freshwater angelfish or something.
Yep.
I can't remember, but I did use it. Okay, well, good. We have a starting point for that.
Well, this is
Now,
another one.
fish, go ahead, Cheryl.
Someone just posted in freshwater. I use General Cure, which is Prazi and Metro. And yes, it is usable on seahorses. And I know other people that have used it because they were not entirely sure exactly what they were dealing with. And it has worked. So that would be another alternative if you can't find the Prazi Pro.
Good. And Fish Dream said, I kept dwarf seahorses years ago. They were delightful, but hatching baby brine shrimp got to be a lot. Dan, what's the difference between keeping keeping dwarf seahorses and the bigger ones? Like, I know that's a huge question, but like, what's the main thing?
Well,
I'm trying to convince them that larger seahorses are so much easier. Okay. I know, Dan, we're going to jump in. You're here.
That's all right. The big thing is that the larger seahorses are much easier to care for. And, in the beginning, it looks like they're going to be more expensive because you need a bigger tank. You need to pay more for the seahorses sometimes. But when you get through dealing with all the hassles and the food and the losses, very few people are successful long-term with dwarf seahorses because of having to feed them live Artemia. So the success rate's much higher and the cost actually balances out to be not as expensive long-term with the larger seahorses, assuming you don't go crazy and buy, the most expensive tank and the most expensive everything. If you just buy a standard tank and set it up properly, you should come out ahead with the larger seahorses.
Gotcha. And Ray, you said
fry.
Yep. We compare them to fry. And I'm trying to get some fry right now, but I understand that it's a lot more work. I've never kept dwarf seahorses because too much without the payoff. Because like when you're talking fry, I get to raise them, see them grow up, maybe even give them to a friend or sell them or whatever, or keep them. And the dwarfs don't even live as long. They only live a couple years, right? Isn't it 3 years?
About 3 years is what I could get out of them.
Yeah.
I never
so-
got 3. I went anywhere from 1.5 years to maybe 2.5. But the
I think
biggest
that's
problem,
more common.
biggest problem I had that frustrated me is I had usually around 50 in a 5-gallon tank, but I'll bet you I couldn't count anymore 15 to 25 at any time. At 25, it'd have to be a miraculous day.
Well, if you go back to the org when I started it, I had a system going for 5 years where I took 2 65-gallon tubs and I put a half a dozen to a dozen in it and let them and I put live mysids in with them. And the tub itself was 34 inches in diameter and water was about 12 inches deep. And we fed Artemia and had kept the live mysids in there with them, and the population would grow in the tank. And once we got to ballpark 200 or 300, we would then take a dozen or so and move them to the next tank and start that tank. And then we would start selling off what was in the first tank. And it was a perpetual batch between those two tanks where for 5 years, I never had a problem with having dwarfs and kept the same system running continuously for that length of time. But
Fish Dreams agrees with me. Babies are worth it. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
the problem is that most people try to keep dwarfs in a very small tank, and it's kind of necessary because of water quality. We took a different approach and used a much larger tank, which meant putting more food in, but we had a much more robust filtration scheme like we did for our fry systems. So in essence, I used a fry system to keep my dwarfs.
What was
Like
the name of the
Terry
lady that
thought
moved from Texas up to Washington, and she set up a 40-gallon breeder specifically for dwarfs, and she seeded it with a lot of copepods and different types of live food, and she was getting 17, 18 fry out of each brood, sometimes more. And I just thought when I saw that, I don't remember her name any longer. It's been too
The
many
problem is that I don't either, but I remember the tank and it worked for quite a while. The problem is most systems try to find somebody who's kept the system going for multiple years, and that's hard to do with dwarf seahorses. You get people that come on. If you'll remember, we had the biologist that came on the Oregon, was just, he had the best results doing an under gravel filter and keeping dwarfs, and was trying to break all the rules, and he was having immediate success, and 6 months later he just disappeared.
It was done.
Yeah.
But she lasted a lot longer with hers and had a lot better success. And it's like if you're going to keep seahorses, I don't care whether they're engines or dwarfs or what else. You've got to have the filtration. You've got to keep the tank clean. There's just no.
Yep, and I'm not trying to jump in here, but I know Dan has to go in 10 minutes, guys. So get your questions in. We'll chat further.
No.
But he has to go. I do have 2 questions real quick. So if you did, and then Vincent and Ray and Holly, we'll get to you guys talking more too once Dan has to go. If you did not want to practice, what would you say the next best would be?
You asking me that?
Yep.
Okay.
You're on the spot for the next 10 minutes.
Well, the problem is what's the next available species?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because with what's going on with everything, it's harder to get a species. H. reedi, if you could find them, would be generally considered, a hardy specimen, as would be H. cuda, but both of them would be very, very difficult in terms of trying to do anything with the fry. I don't know what else is actually out there available at the moment. And, it's going to be difficult to find another species. It needs to be one that is captive bred, ideally not imported. So I would go to the major breeders and find out what they have available and then go from there.
Most of what they have is correct is that you'll occasionally see some reedi, and I have questions when I see that, depending on who they're coming from, if they're even captive bred or if they've been wild caught.
Yep.
They actually have more people talking about raising reedi and fuscus in the UK than we do in the US, which I find really intriguing.
Different rules in terms of acquiring them.
Yep, and why wouldn't you want a rectus? A rectus are awesome. They're the ones that like jump you at the tank, and are in your face, and they're woo, All
They're my favorites. I've had reedi, I've had dwarves, and the rectus are my favorite that I've had.
Shyla said Shyla said Chris will say whitey eye, and I agree. We can't get whitey eye here though.
Exactly.
And they can't get erectus. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But fish dreams. Ray, were you trying to say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, everybody's got erectus, and if you're the average person, you want something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if you're the newest person, you really should start with something that has a lot of documentation. People have succeeded with it. Like when I had multiple species from Dan, but I had Dan to help me, right? And they were all different. And everybody's going to say I don't do tough love very good, and I baby my seahorses, but I had to feed them differently. They acted differently. Their behaviors, everything was different in most species, and so I just think for a beginner, you should definitely go with erectus because figure it out first. Learn to know your seahorses. I know that doesn't make sense, but it will once you have them. Learn to know your seahorses and then expand if they're available. Only go captive bred.
Well, it's like Dan says, you can't find the others really, so it's kind of erectus by default these days.
Right.
Seahorse Australia.
Right, yeah. But we can't do that. We can't order from Seahorse Australia. So they won't ship to the US anymore. Whole other topic. But fish dreams, and besides, when you order from another country, you got to buy bulk. It's expensive. Shipping's ridiculous. And that's a lot for a newcomer. But what is the correct salinity for the bigger seahorses? Also, what is a good breeder to source from?
Well, in terms of salinity, remember this. Most of the, erectus, for example, are primarily found in estuaries. And many estuaries have very, very variable salinity ratios. In times of where the rain has not been up to par, the salinity will go up. And during the rainy season, the salinity will go down. And of course, the tides will replenish those estuaries with fresh water and stuff. But it's still, I've seen great variability in the lagoon in respect to that. If you go with the salinity of the ocean, that's fine. What we did was, because we wanted all of our water to be the same throughout with what we did for hatching, what we did for tanks, we had all of ours set at 26 parts per million, and that was our incoming water. And some of the tanks would, go up a point or two because of evaporation, but that was where we kept them at long term. For those of you,
and before you,
for those of you who use the other scale, if you look on the instrument, it'll usually tell you one side parts per million, the other side the other.
And before you go on to a good source, can you really quickly, and then we have one more question before you go, but can you really quickly tell us why, because I get that answer a lot and I understand it, but just for anybody who doesn't, why does it matter where they were in the ocean if they were captive bred in a facility? Like we tried to talk about this another week, what having to do with their pathogens and how some can handle some things and some can handle another because of where they came from in the ocean. But then the question that people ask is, but they didn't come from the ocean. They came from a breeding facility. They were born in the breeding facility. So why does it still matter? Is it genes? Is it what?
Okay, well, let's take people. Okay. If I have a newborn baby, can I keep it somewhere where there's not a whole lot of oxygen?
Well, no.
But I'm trying to raise it that way. So why does it matter? I mean, some of these things are pre-programmed in through evolution to where they need to have certain parameters. Okay. Now, salinity, people from the reef world want a concrete, solid salinity level, period. Okay. They want everything rock stable. Seahorses in general are from estuaries, except for the ones that are found out in the ocean. But even some of them are found in estuaries. And they're used to a lot of variables in pH and temperature and in salinity. So I don't get hung up on that particular part of it as long as I'm within the normal parameters.
And temperature is much more important, right?
I don't even worry about the temperature. I've recorded 10-degree swings between tides out in the lagoon.
Jeez. Wow.
That's in a 6-hour time frame, 10-degree swing in temperature.
Well, I know you know what you're talking about, but I know my seahorses got sick with a huge temp swing. But it was going up and it went way up.
Well, when you get above 77, you can expect to start having problems.
Right. And it went to like 83. So that's why. But the end of that question was, who do you the source to buy from?
I don't know if there's any new sources. I mean, whenever people call me, I refer them to Alyssa.
Yep.
I suspect Ocean Rider's still in business, and I don't know what they're doing, good, bad, or indifferent. Short of that, I don't know of any other commercial breeders that that I can sit here and recommend. There may be some out there, but I'm not in touch with them.
Well, I can just tell you if you can talk him into it because he's not currently breeding. But the guy in the box underneath Dan, I have a couple of his seahorses now that you guys still have to help me name, and they are gorgeous, acclimating fantastically. I'm gonna have Fry soon. Watch. And so, if you want a smaller time breeder, and you could talk him into it because he's still, taking a break. He did a great job of breeding and then shipping, and I love my seahorses. So I'll just mention that, and I know Tammy does too. Seahorse Mammy wants to know how long does a juvenile tiger tail take to grow bigger? They grow more slowly, right?
They do grow slower. But it's such a highly variable thing. I've had some batches that I would say within just over 4 months, I was starting to sell them off. But I've also seen it
Wow.
take longer. I've had some that we were at 6 months and going, hurry up.
Right.
It really depends on, there's, I don't know if you guys ever saw, if you remember seeing the picture I used to show of a reed eye that was 10 days old and one that was a newborn, and it was in a petri dish, and the older of the two was like 5 times bigger than the newborn, and that was because of the feeding at initial feeding, and that really sets the stage of what happens and how fast they continue to grow. And I was lucky in that time.
Yeah, I've also seen them where a real young pair will produce fry, Combs fry, and the little fry are minuscule with great big heads, and I mean they obviously aren't fully developed. I give that same pair a year, and take a look at the fry a year later, they don't even look like the same species.
Well, the conditioning of the broodstock does make a significant impact on the fry, particularly in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
But also, as you said, Dan, the feeding, the initial feeding,
right? But when
and that's what Tana has experienced, is that seahorse that she bought, her second seahorse, as she said, is spoiled and getting so big and beautiful. But that first one, or the second one, whichever one it was, I'm sorry, Tana, but the one that we're having trouble with, you could tell by the body ratio that it wasn't probably fed right as a newborn. Right?
That might be, or it could have been something else along the way. But even when I made the mini erectus, they were still proportionate.
Yeah.
Okay, Cheryl, I know you want to chat too, but Dan, it's 9:00. Can I ask you one more question, and then we'll let you leave? Okay.
You can stay longer.
He can't, and we can't keep him later. He won't come back. All right. Zen Ginger said, I have 2 tanks similar in size. One is a 125 that is 6 foot by 18 by 21. The other is only 5 foot, but is taller and deeper front to back. Is one better than the other with such a similar footprint? And I will mention, I don't think, is interested in fry at this point. So we're just talking a tank.
Okay. My first rule of thumb is I want as much surface area as I can get out of a tank. So what I'm going to look at in the footprint is which has more surface area that allows more exchanging gases. The second thing I'm going to look at, particularly at this type of a tank, is what is the actual depth? Because when you start getting over 21 inches in depth, you start getting into a situation where you need a mask and a snorkel to do anything in the bottom of the tank. And I find that most people that set up a 30 to 36 inch tall tank regret it long term. And they are a real pain to take care of because you just can't reach down all the way. And everybody says deeper is better. I disagree that deeper is always better. I find more success in having more surface area than I do depth. And example being that we opted to go with 29-gallon tanks as opposed to 30 extra talls. We never had success in the 30 extra talls, but we had massive success in the 29s, and the water level was about 11 inches tall. And that was our
Jeez.
breeding.
I know
That was
that.
our breeding tanks.
I love that that height theory has been disproven. I'm sneaking one more in because I want to know the answer to this too. I noticed my male started to shake or vibrate when he swam next to the other male. Does that mean something? Actually, I know the answer, but Dan, go ahead.
Well, he needs to realize that the other male is the wrong party to be showing off to. Um, but young seahorses will do that. But generally, it's kind of a part of the mating thing where, and quite often, two males, they're trying to figure things out and they're showing off to each other, trying to, do their thing to how to impress the ladies. Think of it as a young teenager who just started weightlifting, walking around with his wife beater shirt, trying to flex his muscles and show off to the girls.
Yeah, I've had two males literally trying to court, like teenage males that I raised, like doing the spin and like,
Oh yeah.
wait, who's gonna
They're
put something where?
practicing.
What's gonna happen here?
They're
And I would
practicing.
also just add, I've got little shorts on the channel that show they also do that. I don't know about the shaking, but the man up, chest up, and the macho crap. They do that to establish who's the boss in the tank.
Yep.
Mhm.
And yep,
Mhm.
so anyways, that was my 2 cents. All right, Dan, you need to go.
I do. Is there
Or
any
you
other
cool with me?
questions?
I think I got all of the.
I
Wait,
got one thing. I
Go
got
ahead.
one thing
Go
I want to
ahead.
bring up. I don't know if you're aware, Dan, but years ago, someone bought some reed-eye from you. They ultimately sold them to a friend of mine. There were two females. So you had hybrids, reed-eye rectus hybrids at the time. And so she ordered two more females. Within less than a month, the two newbies had developed, both of them had developed pouches.
Oh, so you got some hotties? Is that he sold her some
Now,
hotties
if you
that
remember that
turned the
one of the
male?
things I've had arguments with the scientific community is whether or not seahorses females can change to become a male. And Pete Jawanja and I have argued about it. I've had arguments with several PhDs over the issue. I've also had, when I posted it in the professional forum for the public aquariums, the question and laid out the scenario of what I had seen and witnessed, the first thing I got was from the PhDs, need to learn how to tell the sex of an animal. And then I was getting, well, you didn't wait long enough, and this and that. And they basically tried to make a laughing stock out of me. But privately, I had about 4 different emails from different public aquariums thanking me for posing the question because they too had seen it
I'd
and were
experienced it.
questioning, you know. And when you have a female that has mated successfully and then develops a pouch,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
the one thing that we
Yeah.
have not yet been that I've been trying to get recorded and we never got it done was to determine that a female who had successfully mated as a female successfully delivered a batch of fry as a male.
Yeah.
That has yet to be
That would be
proven.
incredible.
And
Oh.
one of the arguments is there's a thing called a pseudo pouch where females can develop what they call a pseudo pouch, where it's not really a full-fledged thing. But we go back to what Dr. Marty Belly, one of the necropsies he did
Yeah.
on a seahorse that I sold to one of the Seahorse org members, when he cut open that animal, it had both organs, the testes as well as the female organs, and
Oh, wow.
was in the process of doing a sex change at the time.
Wow.
So it's not just the
Yep.
girls figuring out that they don't like the boys and they want them to leave them alone and growing a fake pouch. They literally change.
Change into a male.
That's interesting.
Well, apparently
Other
the
fish species.
LGBTQRST, whatever it is, community is with the seahorses too.
Gotcha. And I would say, Zen Ginger and everyone else in the comments are saying we appreciate you so much, Dan. And I know that Chris Carey is hoping he's doing some interesting things. I can't share live. He needs to share them himself, but he's doing some really cool things. He's no longer at Seahorse Australia. So then, guys, I just want you to know in the audience, I didn't know Dan was coming. I literally Dan. So next
Yay.
time he's coming, I will try to know ahead of time so I can announce it so that you guys can make sure to be there, like not just an open chat night. And I'll make sure to tell Chris Carey, if you're watching, Chris, I'll make sure to tell you. And we just appreciate you when you can come, Dan. And we all still want Seahorse Part 4. Ask Seahorse Part 4. But for tonight, you go take care of yourself, and I'll call you throughout the week.
Okay. Y'all have a great
All
night.
right.
Good to see you,
Yeah,
Dan.
see you
Take
Good night.
care.
Thanks, man.
Like,
Yeah,
likewise.
good to see you again.
Y'all
Thank
all
you.
take care.
All right. And for the rest of you, apologize, but you guys know when Dan's here, I got to focus on him because, he's the mentor.
Dan the
And
man.
he had to go early. Ray, are you doing
I'm
okay?
just going to run and feed the seahorse.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. He's got a tooth problem, problematic tonight. But yeah, and thank you guys for asking questions. Fish dreams come back. We don't always, we talk about everything here. I put in the comments on the shirt page, on open chat nights, we might be talking about reef tanks and macros or the weather and bratty kids or fur babies or whatever. You just never know with us. We have fun. We sip wine. It's fun. It's usually seahorse related. And if there's ever a seahorse question, that's what we focus on. What are you drinking,
Modelo.
Vincent? Modelo. Woo! And I wish I had a margarita now that I knew it was National Margarita Day. Well, but okay, guys. Anything? Cheryl, I know I cut you off a couple of times. Was there anything else you wanted to add or say
No,
about anything?
just that people need to be aware. Just because they think they have two females does not necessarily mean like clowns. One of them is going to may very well change sex. And I had a pair that courted for well over a month, hot and heavy, all day long. You got up one morning, they were on opposite sides of the tank, and sure enough, the little female had the beginnings of a little bitty pouch. That ended their courtship.
I've seen it happen too. And speaking of which, I know that didn't transfer, but something she said made me think of it. Oh, clownfish. She said clownfish. Speaking of which, we will have special guest Robert King next week. He's coming back. He has some questions for us about how the char chambers are going in our tanks because Holly, Cheryl, myself, and Vincent, quite a few others have been working with the char chamber, Robert King char chamber. And so he's coming back not only to share with anybody who doesn't know what it is, but also ask us some questions about how it's going in our tanks, kind of feed off each other. And if you don't know who he is, Robert King is zombie clownfish. And so he breeds clownfish. He's amazing. Vincent, what else should I say about Robert to let people know who's coming?
He's a super
just
guy.
Awesome.
He's a good guy. That's all I could say.
Does it? He has
And
the
he's
oldest breeding clownfish pair, I
32
think.
years old.
Really?
32-year-old black Darwins.
Well, you guys remind me to ask him about that next week because you guys know how I forget. But yeah, and so he's gonna come back. Oh, he's on Tank Talk with Tyann a lot too. So I will post about I will announce that he's coming next week. But when you guys see that post, help me share it. If you're on Facebook, just share it. Even if you don't want to on your personal page, share it to a group, share it somewhere. Just get so we can get more people. So when we have guests, that they feel like they actually helped people, or people responded to them. And of course, thumbs up always, please, on the streams. But go ahead, Vincent.
He announced it on his yesterday.
Oh, he already said it.
Yeah, he mentioned it to his live yesterday.
Oh shit! So he already beat me
March
to it.
1st.
I'm slacking. Great. But yeah, he's awesome. I was when you said that, things keep ringing bells here. I was thinking of Herb again because I can't believe he put us on his website. And wasn't there?
And I just talked to him the other
day.
Remember, I got the mysid. So when it's time, I'll share that experience with you guys.
It's time. Please share, Holly. Please share.
All right.
Go ahead.
So Dandy's birthday is next week. He's turning 4 years old. He's my oldest seahorse. He's also kind of handicapped, so I really didn't expect him to live this long. So I decided to do a little celebration for the seahorses and get them some live mysids. So I went to Herb Hickok's website, which is usmysid.com.
Holly, wait. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun.
You're going
Can
backwards.
You talk about the chocolate first?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's Dandy.
Okay. Dandy can't. All right, I'll shut up and let you keep going, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead.
You can scroll back to the other pictures, and then the first one I sent you today is probably a good one. So
Okay,
anyway, I
let
went
me
to,
start there while you're talking.
yeah. So
Go
while
ahead.
you're doing that, so I went to the U.S. MICID's website, and they have 500 of them is called a sample, and it's $75 including the shipping. But I was thinking to myself, I have 11 seahorses total in 2 tanks, and 500 sounds like a lot of mycids to me. So I I sent him an email, asking about it if I could get a smaller amount. And he emailed me back, and I saw he had his phone number in the email. So I just called him up and explained the situation. So you can see the group of them in the sand there in front of it, in front of So anyway, so I explained the situation. He said, really, he says, for that many seahorses and 2 tanks, he says, I don't think 500 will be too much. You'd be surprised. He says, they'll
Right.
probably be gone in a couple days. You can just dump them in the tank. He says, but I can keep them on the lighter side of 500 for you, keeping in mind, because I said I didn't want to take care of them. I just wanted to dump them in the tank and be done and let the seahorses eat them.
Right.
And so with the weather systems coming through, I decided, even though Dandy's birthday is actually next week, I decided to do the mycids this week. So he shipped them from Florida Monday evening, and they arrived here in Northern California at 11:30 a.m. at my door, just in time for Seahorse lunch. And
Nice.
the seahorses love them. They snacked them up, all except for Dandy. Like it was his birthday. So you noticed
Oh.
in that video you just showed, that was his little
Oh, sorry.
herd. So
Oh, wait. So
yeah,
you want me
so
to go
these
back? So wait.
seahorses, those are his tank mates. And so you
So
can
they loved
see,
them.
this is his tank mates, and you can see them, the ladies are hitched near him, and they're snacking the mycids.
They're eating his birthday cake.
Yeah,
What?
but it was lunchtime, and
Oh, shoot.
his face is at his dish. He wanted his frozen food. And
Uh-huh.
I put them in a turkey baster when I first put them into the tank. It was lunchtime, and I kind of squirted them into his dish with the turkey baster so that everybody wouldn't have any doubts that it was food. And
Oh,
my
shoot.
team,
I can't. Sorry, Holly. I keep forgetting to share. I'm watching the videos as you're talking, and I keep forgetting to share them. Here we go. Okay.
yeah,
Go
so
on.
this is Scrappy Doo. Every seahorse treated them differently based on that seahorse's personality. So this is
Interesting.
Scrappy Doo. There's 4 seahorses in that tank. There's Dandy, Scrappy Doo, and the 2 girls are Candy and Sadie. Scrappy Doo took to hunting. He wanted to go hunting in the rocks. And Cheryl had seen this before. She pointed out that one goes right by his face, and he misses it
Yep.
because he's so concentrating on the one on the rock. but but he enjoyed chasing them through the rock, hunting. The 2 females, they went to town and just snicked them right out of the water column. This is in the other tank. They immediately knew what to do. They just started snacking them left and right. But
Mm.
poor Dandy, he sat at his dish and waited for a frozen meal. So I
Aw.
gave him like a half an hour, with the live ones right in front of him, and he wouldn't eat them.
And this is
And
Dandy?
that's Dandy. So what happened was I ended up feeding him his frozen lunch while everybody else was eating the live ones, but he got interested in them. But what he did was he followed them around the tank. Like he
Huh.
was herding them like sheep, like you can see the group of them all right in front of him.
Yep.
And I'm like, are they teasing him? Because they'd all swim to like in the distance of where he couldn't snick them, see them, but they all got in a group,
Aw.
and he followed them around all day, just watching them, kind of like a bird watcher or something.
Well, you know what though? That means he was enjoying it.
He
You
did
know what I mean? Even though
enjoy
he didn't
them.
eat them.
He did enjoy them. But at the end of the day, I saw him snick a couple. One of them, he ended up with a mouthful of sand too, because he was,
Oh
and
yeah.
he was obsessed with them. So when it got to be close to nighttime, he was on the wrong side of the tank from where he usually hitches, because he hitches on the bare bottom side, and they were all hanging out
Right.
in the sand, and he was over there watching them, but the sun was going down. And so I just gently picked him up and headed him home, and he swam the rest of the way and hitched up for the night, just like normal with the other seahorses. And there was a bunch of them left when we went to bed last night, but there was none this morning in
This
that
morning.
tank. And I think my peppermint shrimp probably snacked them overnight, what was left.
Stop.
And in the other tank, in the tiki tank, I've got 7 seahorses in that tank, but I don't have any peppermint shrimp or goby or anything in there. And they still have a few as of this evening, like very few.
This tank?
No, this is the one you're looking at right now. That's Dandy's tank. See, I used the turkey baster, you can see, to put them in. And you can see Candy's right there. She's like,
Oh
I
yeah.
see what that is. And both the ladies in that tank, they were on it right away. Sadie was picking them off the wall. They were kind of opportunists about it. They didn't hunt so much as they just ate them. They, like, as soon as one would get in their face, they were just like snack.
Well, yeah. And I mean, yeah, I
And
forgot what I was
Scrappy
gonna say,
Doo was
but
different.
yeah.
He didn't get them like that. He preferred to hunt. Like I said, he went all through the reef looking for them and concentrating. And Dandy was kind of like that too, but he wouldn't eat them. And I
Well,
figured
Dandy
out,
Dandy has never seen him before though, and he is handicapped,
I
and
think it's the handicap. I think what it is that he figured out he's not stealthy enough to catch one.
Aw.
He's not very well coordinated. And so I think he
Yeah.
kind of figured, like, he maybe wanted to go for him. He was interested in him, but they're too quick for him, because they do try to get
Yeah.
away. They do seem to understand. It was funny because after a little while, they were staying away from the seahorses on purpose.
Well, sure.
After
Well,
they
sure.
figured out
Go
what was
hide.
going on.
Did you put all
Hey,
of them?
Zen Ginger.
Did you put all of them
Hang
in?
on, Zen Ginger. Hang on. Zen Ginger said she's drinking a Patron Silver Margarita for all of us. Woo,
Cheers.
woo. And then Dandy did get Dandy candy, but Cheryl, ask your question. Go ahead. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I was just asking, did you tell them did you put all 500 in at once?
I did. How I
Yeah.
did it was they came in a big bag, rubber banded,
Yeah.
and you acclimate them to temperature. And my salinity is the same as what he does, so I didn't have to worry about any of that. So they arrived. I have a temperature gun that I use for the tanks to read the water. So when they arrived, the water they were in was 61 degrees. And the water in this tank in the room where I am right now is 64, 65 degrees, right in there. And so I brought them in here and floated them in the tank with an air line. The directions say, he says, open the bag right away, shove in an air line, and acclimate them to your tank temperature. So it only took 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And at that point, what I did was I took a plastic cup and I scooped 2 cups out of the bag and went and dumped them into the display tank. So they got their portion. And then I dumped the rest of the bag into this tank. And I turned off, I removed my quick filters and internal filters while I had them so they wouldn't get sucked up. I turned off all the aquarium pumps for about roughly half an hour when I added them, just to allow them to settle in so they didn't go down the drain. And I didn't find any in the filter socks. I had a few get stuck in the overflow boxes
Yeah.
in the tiki tank room because that tank's not drilled. So they got into the overflow boxes and then they couldn't go down the drain because there's sponges fitting over.
Right.
There was really very few in there. I think I rescued like 5 or 10 out of there, was all. They actually, like you said, they went mostly farther down in the tank.
They stay low.
Yeah, they stayed
Usually.
lower. I see them swim around, but they didn't really go down the drains much. And yeah, I put in all 500 or so, split it between the 2 tanks,
Yeah.
and they were
They'll
pretty
hide-
much gone by today.
They'll hide under the rocks, and over time, if you depending on well, you're running bio balls, so they'll probably end up in the bio balls. But in my systems, they always end up in the filter sock. Then I have to go fishing for them.
I didn't find any in the filter sock though.
Yeah, but you're running bio balls.
I am.
Yeah, but the filter socks before the bio
But
balls.
I would find them in the sock because that's where the water
I see what
drains
you're saying.
into.
Yeah.
But and like I said, I found very few in the overflow boxes in this tank. So they mostly went down, and I noticed because in this tank it's bare bottom. But I have that fake reef in there.
Yep.
And they really liked that. They liked hanging out on the top of it where the seahorses don't go, by the way.
Yep.
But another place that I found him, and I think it's because they were doing when my peppermint shrimp molts, he likes to climb up high on stuff and leave his skin behind. And I think they must have been doing that because I have an airline that's covered in them. And I think it's because they crawled up there to molt. And I honestly don't know that they're still on there. So I don't know if it's them or if it's their empty shells are up there.
Right.
So
Could be.
I have that going on in there.
Ray, because Ray types in our restream chat,
Well, if you look
and he
at the
tells me
bottom of
funny
the page-
things, and then I don't get to tell you guys.
If you look at
Zen
the bottom of the
Ginger.
page,
Go ahead, Ray.
She's drinking for all of us.
Yeah, Zen Ginger.
I just said, I hope she's not getting me drunk.
Oh, I thought it was like a drink. Zen Ginger, you're now a drink.
No.
Just kidding.
Cheers.
No, and I made the comment in there that my significant other was listening, hearing what you guys were saying, and he said, "Yeah, I told you that I didn't tell you it was National Margarita Day because I knew you'd make me get you some." So Gina's Reef's like, "Them's fighting words, them sleeping on the couch words."
Yeah.
Heck yeah. But Holly, then you did make dandy
Candy,
Is that it?
yeah, that's chocolate. I have
Let me
these
pull that up.
molds.
All
I
right.
have silicone molds. And it's the first time I ever tried it. I have to say I'm not very good at it, and I don't have the right equipment because I had a squeeze bottle I was trying to squeeze the chocolate from. And the chocolate
I
was
think they look good.
chocolate was squeezing out the sides of the squeeze bottle instead of out the tip. So I can't.
Oh.
It didn't work right. So yeah, they're all messy looking, but yeah, they're molds of seahorses. So.
Look at the little baby.
Yeah, there's even fry, but those are teeny.
fry.
I didn't have many of those come out. They were like in half. Or
I remember that Lucy did chocolate seahorses for one of the Macnas that I couldn't make it because I don't know, there was a
she
hurricane
sent
or
me
something.
a picture.
Something.
She sent me a
so
picture.
she made chocolate. Is that what gave you the idea?
No. I saw
you already had it?
Well, I saw the molds. Yeah, the silicone molds.
Gotcha.
And my sister-in-law does cake decorating and all that. So I mean, I knew a little, but I was using Gina's talking about tempering chocolate, but all I was using was those melts that you just put in the microwave. But the thing is, I don't have the pastry or cake decorating bag with the tips. So I was using a like a mustard dispenser thing or something, like a plastic bottle. And it was coming out of the cap of the plastic bottle instead of through the tip. And
Yep.
letting
Hey,
it go, it was not good.
you just break off the pieces. But Ray says things, you guys, that normal, if it's on a post, you'd be like, oh, he's mean or he's grumpy. But we know him, so he says it in our little chat. We just smack him around a little bit afterwards. But that comment was Ray's. I copied and pasted. Why not just eat the chocolates? Waste
Yeah.
of time, male wolves, before eating. It's cool, Ray. It's fun.
That was
It's
Like naming
fun.
the
yeah.
seahorses.
What was it?
Like naming the seahorses.
It's like naming the
I
seahorse. Yeah. They know who they are. They know when I talk to them.
That's right. Absolutely. I in my big tank when I was breeding and I had all the seahorses, I swear I only named my main ones, like my breeders and the ones I loved. But I'd call little Cheryl, and I understand you're all gonna say, "Oh, she just thought you were ready to feed," but she'd come to me.
Mhm.
She would come when called. Dang it!
Mine would come to me and I
So,
didn't call them any names.
shut up, Ray. Shut up. No, I'm just teasing. But Zen Ginger did say, let's see, next time use a freezer gallon bag and just
Yeah,
just cut the
cut the
tip
tip.
off.
Good one.
Smart.
Maybe
I
I'll try
gotcha.
that tomorrow when I make some more.
Well, I'm glad that Dandy at least enjoyed his present. And
He enjoyed them.
did your own birthday go well, Holly?
Yeah, it did. I got a nice weather day on Sunday. It was like in the valley, it was 70. Up here, it was low 60s. But we went down to the valley and hung out with Scott's mom, and we went to the antique mall and did a bunch of fun antiquing and went out to lunch.
I'm sorry, Holly. We're
Yeah,
all
there we
seeing
go.
Zen
I like
Ginger's comment. She's gonna name her first seahorse Ray out of spite.
that. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Ray said, "Is it a female seahorse?"
If it's a female, she has to put an E on the end.
Oh,
That's great.
sorry, Holly. I didn't
Oh
mean to
yeah,
cut
and
you
I
off.
got
Sorry.
my brother sent me that. This actually got here today. This was a present from my brother
Let
in
me
New
let me make you big. See
Mexico.
it?
Yeah, can you see the babies?
Aw. He's got. That is the first time I've ever seen anything like that.
Aw,
A seahorse with babies in the pouch. That's so
yes.
cool.
And this I have this is Dandy's birthday bag. I can show you what he's getting for his birthday that he might enjoy.
All right, let's take a sneak peek.
So a little hitch.
Oh,
Another
I
one.
love that.
I have this same one in the tiki tank, and they love it. And they seem to like the little things to hang on
Yep.
to. Like they have a palm tree in Dandy's tank. Here's another little
Yep.
Love it.
hitch.
And Dandy's tank is the one that already has the saloon, right?
No, that's in the tiki tank.
Oh, he needs a saloon then, Holly.
And
Come on.
so they're bigger. They might get stuck in the saloon.
Oh, gotcha.
And this is his own
Nice.
dish. I'm going to put it down lower. And the others will eat out of it too. This is actually one that I stole from the tiki tank.
Mm-hmm.
But Dandy keeps trying to swim up to the feeding station where the other seahorses eat because he wants to be a part of it all. And it's too high up for him. So I thought I'd put in one more and put it farther down to where it's a little bit up, but low enough that he should be able to get to it. And that way he can feel like he's a part of that.
Absolutely.
And last of all,
You'd almost think that you girls think that seahorses think like
a
women.
shark.
Ray,
think what?
think like women.
You'd think that you figure that seahorses think like women do.
They
Ray's
must.
whole goal is
The seahorse
Ray's
probably
whole
don't even
goal.
give a darn about it all.
Well,
Ray's whole goal is to get me blocked on YouTube for his sexist comment.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, what I
But
found is they like the little hitches. They like to have a little thing to sit and hang out with, and I can change them out, often, like cleaning day or whatever. But like I posted this morning, I had all 3 seahorses except for Dandy in the display tank. They were all hitched to one little palm tree this
Yeah.
morning.
mhm.
And they have nice big corals, nice, big hangouts that they go to, now and then. But a lot of times their favorite place to sit is something small. And they trust it sooner. Also, I've noticed when I put a big decoration in, it might take them a couple, 2 or 3 days to be
To sniff it
to
out.
be
Yep.
hanging out with
Well,
it. But the little ones, a lot of times they'll come the very first day, like, oh, look at this, and just hitch to it right off the bat.
well, and I think too that they like new stuff because,
Yeah.
like I told you guys, I have now 5 seahorses in that tank because only for temporary because I'm feeling them out and seeing who's going to pair up. But 4 of them, well, 3 of them sleep hitched to the Robert King chamber.
Mm-hmm.
The newest thing in the tank.
Yep.
It's not even a decoration, it's a filtration, but they love it. It could be the bubbles,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just, I think it's like they like when you give them something new.
Yeah.
They don't want you to like alter their entire universe and change everything.
Yeah.
But you give them something new, it's like, woo. I mean, think about it. They're stuck in a dang box, I mean,
Yeah.
they entertain each other, but I think it's cool when you give them something new. I love that. If you have a natural tank, throw in a macro,
Mm-hmm.
if you, or just, rearrange one side, not the whole thing. Don't want to stress them out, where they are. They don't know where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
But, and if they have their favorite spots, I
I
think
leave
Holly,
them
we
their
dealt with that once.
favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't like when their favorites go away. But hey, Fish Dreams, if you like Seahorse decor, you need to go back and watch the one Wednesday where we did show and tell. Or no, it was Friendsgiving because we showed a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to share it because I'm so proud of my sister. She's amazing. She's very artistic. And this is, let me make myself big real quick. This is literally made of nothing more than wine corks.
That's cool.
And she turned it into this beautiful thing. And I love it. And it hangs on my wall. So I just wanted to
Did she get them all from you?
She needed
Ray?
an excuse.
Ray's
Can I ju-
full
can
of
I
it
just-
tonight.
I know. He's spunky and spicy. But I will say, actually, we have a joke in my family because my sister and I both like wine. And we call this, like if you, and I've got my lipstick on it, but when you have a glass of wine, you go to a restaurant, it's usually filled to like here, right? Not even halfway, whatever. This is a De La Verne pour. This is my family's pour. We go up to the top, all right? We don't play, but yeah. Many of them came for me, Ray. I'll admit it. But that's all right. Still beautiful. Anyways, anything else, guys? I'm just rambling now. And oh gosh, we're kind of early tonight. We usually run till 10. Ray got jokes, Seahorse Mammy. Absolutely. Ray got jokes. Vincent, we haven't heard much from you. Anything going on? With your
I'm
house family,
tired now.
Seahorses? I'm sorry.
Thinking of another
We all
joke.
talked you out, huh?
Us ladies wore him out with all the
Yeah.
girl seahorse talk.
Yep.
He's like Ray. He's probably like, it's like, why name your seahorses? Why get them toys?
Vincent and Ray are over there like, are we talking about decoration? And my tank has a char chamber. That's it. But that's all right. Vincent, you gonna come like next week if you're able?
Oh yeah,
Help me
I'll
chat
be
with
there.
Robert?
Yeah,
All right, cool.
with Robert. Yeah.
And just to let anybody in the audience know, if you haven't been here for a special guest week, typically like the first half hour, I'll talk to him one-on-one, but I don't think I'm going to do that next week because we already did the one-on-one. to establish who Robert was another time. So I think we're just going to jump in with everybody and, chat. Have fun.
Oh, and Herb said to say hi too, and he said he enjoyed being on. I said, well, you should do it again. He said, yeah, it's probably about time. It's been a while. And then he said,
Well,
yeah,
and
he says, did you notice? He says, I have you guys on my website. And I said, yeah, we talked about that last week. Kelly showed that when we were talking about me getting the mysids. So yeah, it was nice to
that's
talk
so.
to him again. And yeah, great guy. And
I will actually email him as soon as we're done here because we do need to get him back in here because I bet you're not the only one that has questions about what if I don't need 500. Like you luckily had 2 tanks, so it equaled out. But we can
yeah,
get him in here, talk to him about it, maybe shared orders or smaller orders or how to raise them.
yeah, because I
I'll
think
email him and
it's
see when he
hard
can
for
come.
him because of the count. It's hard for him to get less, I think.
Yeah, I
Is
know.
what it is. So he's like, I'll try to keep it on the lighter side for you. He says, but I really don't think 500 is too many. He says, you'll be surprised. He says,
Well, and you were.
yeah. And he says, he was totally right too. He says, I don't think they'll last you more than 2 days. He says, he says, 2 days, they'll be gone. He says, and they
We
really
feed our
won't be too much for your system, like clogging. Like I did, because there were some dead ones in there too, because they get dried up on the part of the bag that's not in the water, right? So
Probably molds.
huh?
It's probably
Or mold. Yeah, or molds, like Ray said, probably that. But so there was some detritus that got in, because I just poured them in, like you said. But it wasn't anything I couldn't deal with, just like siphon, like I siphon uneaten
right.
food every day and stuff. It
That,
wasn't bad enough where I felt like it polluted my tanks or anything.
at least
that.
you didn't
See,
name.
I gotta admit, I don't care what it is. I don't care where it's from. I love her.
Mm-hmm.
I trust him. But in my tanks, I never add somebody else's water to my water.
Mm-hmm.
Ever, ever, ever. I'm glad it worked out for
Mm-hmm.
you, Holly. But Vincent, what were you gonna say?
It's a good thing Holly didn't name them.
Oh, look, now Vincent got jokes. Come on, boys. All right, bring it. I was going to say that Ray always talks to us about the fact that none of us feed our seahorses enough. But his statement is right. Wild seahorses constantly eat. That's their whole life is eating and mating. But
yeah.
point is, when they have live foods like that and they can hunt them, yeah, they're going to disappear quick.
Oh, they
Because
got
you have no idea how much seahorses can eat. We keep our seahorses healthy by feeding them 2 to 4 times a day, but they could eat all day.
They got full. Mine were getting full though. Like I don't think I sent you that. I posted a lot of videos on my page. I didn't send them all to you, but I have this one video of Sadie, and she's just watching them. Like she's mesmerized, but she's too full to eat anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So she's sitting there just watching him for a while.
Go ahead, Ray.
I just want to mention so people aren't confused. They don't eat all day the amount that your seahorses are eating in the tank when you feed them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good point. Good point.
They're basically grazing when food fly them close enough. They don't like to leave their area. Most seahorses live most of their lives in a very small area. It's just that the area might be a little bit bigger than the tank, but the thing is the water's changing all the time, so they're lucky.
Yeah. Food happens.
Chimp sticking up. Wait, Chimp is sticking up for you boys in the stream. He said they kid around because they care. Yeah, I don't think that's it. But and I will say, the seahorses that I just got from Vincent that I absolutely adore, and you guys need to help me name. We're gonna do a poll or something because I got to get names for them because I do name my seahorses. But they were I noticed that too. The schedule was funny. Because I know they don't eat all day, but they get used to their eating schedule. And they came here, and my significant other works 3rd shift. I work 2nd shift. So, we're not up at 6 a.m. ever, unless we're going to bed, right? So the first time I fed, they were starving because they'd just
They're
been
like,
shipped, of
"Where's
course, but
breakfast?"
yeah, where's breakfast? I'm like, this is breakfast, Toots. You better get used to this schedule. Tough love. But
Yeah.
they did. They came around just fine. They
Mhm.
eat every meal. But the second time, or when I fed late at night for the first time, they were like, wait,
We're
what?
supposed to be
I'm
sleeping
tired.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be sleeping. But anyways, kind of funny.
Yeah, I feed them early in the morning when I wake up,
Mhm.
and then the last one is usually be 6 o'clock to 6:30.
Oh, geez.
Mine don't
6:30 is
eat
like your
that
first or
late
second feeding
unless I'm
now.
home late. Usually mine are eating like morning, midday, and then late afternoon. Sometimes it'll be later, like if I have a long day and it's close to lights out time, their lights go out at 6. So
Mhm.
I'll feed them like
Their lights go
sometimes
out at
5.
6 p.m.
Yeah, they come on at 6:30 a.m. and out at 6.
Wow.
See, that's normal. That's good. My seahorses don't get that luxury. We're on a different shift, but they adjusted. They adjusted just fine. Now they're
Yeah,
cool. They
they
know what's
will.
up. They're in it. But I do wonder, like, because I messed up and I put the tank. I mean, I just don't have any more room in the house.
Mhm.
There's tanks everywhere. Even though they're not full anymore, there's tanks everywhere. So I put it up against a window,
Mhm.
and I've got those blinds that
Mhm.
are light stopping or
Yeah,
whatever. You know what
yeah.
I'm talking about?
Yeah, blackout.
Light stopping
Mhm.
blinds, blackout. Yeah, but I can still see. It's lighter in that area, and I wonder if it bugs them to know that they should be awake when they're not. I'm not letting them be, or they're awake, but you know what I mean? That they should be eating, they should be up, but I've forced them onto this. Now, Ray, don't say I'm a stupid and I'm being too much of a mommy here.
They would
Get
tell
a
you,
I
no,
never
no, you
feel
guys,
stupid.
Ray just said in the comments, get a bigger place. Priorities. He's on one.
Yeah.
He's on one
yeah.
Well,
tonight.
I get
What were
up
you?
earlier than the seahorses because I like to relax before I have to feed them. I feed the freshwater tank first. Like I'm up at 5:30 and have coffee and stuff, and they'll see me out in the room with the kitchen lights are on, not in the room they're in, but in the other room. So there's enough dim lighting, that they can see me and see I'm awake. And they kind of start, waking up. And then I give them sunrise like at 6:15 before the regular tank lights come on. And during that 15 minutes before 6:30, they kind of start stirring and then Candy does her food dance and lets me know she's ready for breakfast and then I feed everybody. But at nighttime they have the blue lights on until like 11 o'clock at night. And
Mm,
if I have a late night and I come home like after their bedtime, Candy is like the watchdog of the tank. Like
mm,
she sits in the corner and watches for me. And if she
mm.
sees me walk through the living room and it's she'll start dancing and say, "Mom, it's not too late to eat." And
It's never too
and
late
then
to
and
eat.
then sometimes I'll give them, that late meal. Like if I have the
Yep.
energy, sometimes I try to sneak through the house so they don't see me.
Right,
Because I
right, which
feel
is so
guilty
sad.
if I don't feed her. But but
Well, no, I was
other
gonna say, you
horses
guys
don't
know,
do it. It's all her. And then she alerts everybody. Then they all kind of
she's the
come.
watchdog.
Yep.
She is the watchdog. And I would say, I actually have a serious question next, but I would say you guys know I'm typically late for Wine Wednesday. I had to tell my part-time job, listen, don't expect me to be on time. I'm always a couple minutes late, right? And so when I'm rushing to get to work, it's terrible. But I mean, I always feed them, but sometimes it's a tad rushed. So sometimes their breakfast, which is actually lunch to
Lunch.
most
Yeah.
seahorses, is But I have a question.
What's your boss
Do
say when you're
they?
late?
What?
What does your boss say when you're late?
Well, at first he was strict on me, but then he saw what an amazing worker I was, and he was like, in fact, when I show up on time, they're like, oh, "What are you doing here?" No, actually, I'm telling the truth. That's so sad. But anyways, it's just a part-time job. It's whatever. But I do have a serious question for you guys because I've wondered this. I feel like, do they actually sleep? Do seahorses actually sleep? Because I feel like they do. They have to.
Yeah.
But I've walked up to the tank pitch black, and all of a sudden the eyes, one
They
of the
can't
eyes are
close
over at
their
me.
eyes because they're fish, but they'll be
I
asleep.
know. But I mean, they're asleep, but they are conscious and they see me move and they're awake.
I don't know. I
Like
just,
my dog. I can just lift my
It's what,
head.
Ray?
It's like my dog. I just lift my head, and my dog
And he's up. That's true.
right away. He's
But
like he's supposed to be sleeping, but he's just so
no
aware.
longer.
You can tell if they're really asleep. Like if they're in a deep sleep, they won't notice you. Because I've
See, that's
noticed,
what I thought.
I've noticed that, especially because in this room I'm in now with the tiki tank, it'll be super dark in here in the morning compared to anywhere else because the blinds will be closed. They'll have like no lights on, but I might come in with a flashlight in the early morning looking for something, and I can come by them and it's like they're frozen in time. You just can
Yeah.
tell the difference. They're not moving at all. They're not noticing you. But sometimes if you turn on a light, sometimes it'll startle them, and then you woke them.
No, you're right. You're right. Because I actually have a video where I show the seahorse was dark and sleeping. And then when I flip on the light, he kind of startles and then he starts to lighten up and, goes about his day. But he literally changed colors based on whether he was awake or not, or it was light on or not. But Cheryl, is there any scientific stuff about seahorses sleeping, guys? I'm still alive.
What does it matter?
I'm just curious. I'm curious.
You'll see other fish do it too. Like, I have freshwater fish too. You see them asleep. Same thing.
Okay, guys, we are gonna have to go. My family's getting rowdy. Like I said, third shift here. But dwarf. I'm so sorry, David. I didn't mean to say dwarf. David F said.
Real quick on the
Okay, go ahead,
timing
Cheryl.
thing.
Yep.
When I had my 46 or 4 foot long tank in the living room that I used as a grow out tank, and of course, all the little guys went in there. My sons could walk in, run back and forth across the tank. They'd never move. I walk in, and they all come racing to the front and stand along the front of the tank.
Yeah.
They know mama. They know mama's feeding. And I do think too, I've noticed my seahorses don't seem to react as much when I think they're sleeping since I added like the Robert King chamber. I think the bubbles, the noise, I don't know, that they're used to movement around them, that the movement doesn't startle them as much or wake them up or whatever. But David F wanted, quick question. We have 32.5 tank. I'm guessing that's gallons, and have a first set of fry, approximately 22 left. They're 3 weeks old and about 70 to 81 week olds. What is a good ratio of seahorses to per gallon? Oh my gosh, Dan has that equation nailed. I'm still here. David, we'll chat about it. Hang on. We'll chat about it, but I will have come back next week because I will have an absolute answer for you from Dan. Because he has that equation worked out perfectly, and he left about at 9:00. So go ahead, Cheryl.
My first question would be, what kind of filtration are you running? And you said 32.
Well, he really just wants to know the ratio of fry to gallons.
There's no way to give that without knowing what is cleaning
going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you can do a smaller amount, just do a lot of water changes. Like I was forced to raise 20 in a 29-gallon tank because that's what I had. And I was changing water every other day. And then I got the grow out tank, which was 85 gallons, and that helped. But I mean, really, it's
Well, let's
bigger the
let
better.
Cheryl let's let Cheryl finish, and then I know Vincent has
The
some things to
problem
say.
with
Go ahead, Cheryl.
fry is you never know how many you're going to have, first of all. You never know how many are going to survive. And I'll tell you right up front, all my old 29-gallon tanks have been completely reworked with baffles that are now sumps. That's one piece. I have two roughly 20 to 25-gallon nursery tubs, depending on the tub, that are plumbed into a single 29-gallon sump. Now, what that does is it gives them double the water, plus it gives me the ability, as they mature, as they start getting bigger, separate the smaller ones from the larger ones without having to change water. It also enables me to move everything out of one tub and break it down completely and scrub it if I need to and add fresh water. So they're much more versatile.
But for someone who can't do all that, the key things that you said were, what's the filtration on the tank? What other questions do you have for someone asking this question? What's the filtration? What equipment do you have? What else,
size?
Cheryl?
I'd have
What size?
Yeah,
What?
because this is going to change. Like Holly there, she probably had to start doing a lot more water changes as they got bigger.
Yep. Yeah.
Sure. And as they
Absolutely.
go to frozen.
The other way is if you have multiple containers set up for these fry, that as they get larger, you're going to put fewer in same size container that you had them in when they were smaller.
And I would say too that if you have some 3-week-olds and you're not succeeding past like 4 to 5 weeks, it's probably because actually I started, like, not my first time breeding because I didn't know anything and I was, asking questions. But once I started talking to Dan and such, I started trying to wean seahorses onto frozen foods at 4 weeks old. 4 to 6 weeks is when I started weaning. And so they might not be getting adequate nutrition. But back to your question. I'm sorry, Vincent. What were you?
I mean, I've had.
Please.
You remember my 40-gallon tank?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I had 60, 80 of them in a 40-gallon tank for quite a while.
Which is not recommended for a newcomer.
But the thing is I'm keeping tabs on my water quality, and I'm doing a lot of water changes. And I did have the char chamber in there and stuff like that. But they had to, sooner or later, you got to split them up. You're going to have to put them into bigger tanks.
So I think our overwhelming answer is it depends, as with every seahorse question. But if if you're having trouble and not being able to keep the fry, you either need to add more filtration or do more water changes. I know people that raised fry very successfully with a lot of dang work, where they were actually had 2 tanks and they literally just transferred. Like tank transfer method when you have a sick fish.
That's how I did mine in the beginning. 10-gallon tanks until they got to be, they started growing, and then that tank was too small. And then what else do I have around here? Look out in the storage. Oh, I got this 29-gallon. I mean, you make do with what you have. I mean, but the more water volume you have, the better. I could tell you when you're raising them.
If you're interested, if you're trying to go commercial, go back and watch my interview with Cheryl Taylor, who's here tonight, because she talks about the tub. If you want to go commercial, like I want to breed as a hobbyist, I would sell to my, help my friends out, sell to maybe my local stores. I'm not trying to be Dan or Alyssa or Seahorse Heavy or any of them. I don't want to do that. It's way too much work, and you can't do that really in a house, right? You have to have a facility. So I breed at a hobbyist level just for the love of it. So as Holly said, I make do. If you want to go commercial and you're trying to make this a business, go watch my interview with Cheryl Taylor. Just under Seahorse Whisperer YouTube, search interview with Cheryl Taylor, and she talks about her tubs because those are the way to go. You need adequate filtration for raise fry long term. Wait, hang on. One of the things
I use the tub.
Hang on. I know you do, and I'm going to let you guys talk. I just want to say one thing. That was one of the things that I was so angry about when I first started trying to breed seahorses at a hobbyist level, is that I asked, I think it was Pete at Ocean Rider, about exactly your question. How many fries should I have? What kind of filtration? Da da da. And he answered my question, but then I said, no, 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 no. My seahorses aren't newborns. They're 4 weeks old, and I'm trying to wean them onto fry, and they're getting big. And I'm talking about a rearing tank, not the nursery. The nursery tub to me is different from the rearing tank. And Pete literally told me, oh, forget that. You can't do it at home. I can tell you I did it at home. So is Holly. So is Cheryl. So is Vincent. So is Rick. So you can do it at home. And so all I'm trying to say is your question is not stupid. It's a good question. And we want to help you. You just got to give us more information. And he did say 2 sponge filters and a lot of water changes. So you're doing it the hard way.
Yeah.
You can do it that way, but it's the hard way. Let Vincent talk because I cut him off.
Well,
And I
yeah.
got a little
Hang on,
a
Cheryl.
little tub for dry fry. My wife,
Go ahead,
my
Cheryl.
wife made
Oh,
these,
go ahead.
and they're miniature of the big ones.
Mm-hmm. And how many do you keep in there,
Oh,
though?
that's little. Oh,
Yeah.
in them tubs, you can have 100 fry in each tub.
I think my tub, I haven't raised them in tubs because I got my tub after my seahorses stopped having fry, but it's 18 gallons, I think, is
Yeah,
the
17 and a half.
size I
Yeah.
have.
But then I had 2
And
of them.
I never used it, but I mean, I did okay with the tanks because my seahorse was having batches really intermittently, like 8 weeks apart and not very big
Yeah.
batches. But if you have a seahorse that's having a couple hundred every 3 weeks, like they can do, you're going to need a lot of tanks or tubs and a lot of water. So it kind of depends on your own
Well, what you do,
situation.
what you do in that situation is what I ultimately had to do. Is I followed all Dan's instructions going back to predating 2007. And he would call me on the phone when I was driving and say, "Oh, I'm just trying this new thing. You got to try this out." But anyway, so we've been going back and forth for quite some time. And what happened is I came to the realization that I only need 1 or 2 pairs of seahorses max.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, that's why I love combs, because they grow much slower. They're harder to raise. They have smaller broods than Erectus and some of the others. And it's one of those things where it's been a very gradual.
Well, no, and what Cheryl's
process.
point is very valid. The questions you're asking now, pretty soon your problem will be you have too many adult seahorses.
Yeah.
And I mean that happens. Once you figure it out and figure out a system and that's what I ran into. Just to give you a basic overview. I just do this at the hobbyist level. I just love doing it and watching them grow
Yeah.
up, and I keep most of mine. But so I don't have that many I don't have hundreds of survivors each batch, right? Like Vincent does or like Dan does. But in my case, I started out using teeny tiny tanks, and I just did 100% water changes or transferred. I use sponge filters, and you can do it that way. I've raised
Yep.
seahorses. Little Cheryl, my first seahorse that lived for 10 years, was born in a little teeny or raised in a little teeny tank. However, she only had 2 other tank mates because I only had 3 from that batch survive.
Yeah.
So they, the water changes were adequate. Once you're talking about 20, 30, 50, 100, and you're in a smaller tank, even the water changes almost can't keep up because you're feeding so often and etc. So I would say, depending on how many fry you have, and you did give us a number, but I'm just saying you have to gauge it. If they don't seem to be thriving, if they don't seem to be working out for you, then you probably need to split them up into 2 smaller ones if you want. And you need to, if you're going to do it long term, think about that rearing tank. I ended up setting up a 90-gallon SCA, and that's where I had all my, adolescence, I guess you should say. And that worked out for me. But I did want to go back to, what was I going to say? Oh my gosh. There was something else I wanted to tell you. Something about the sponge. Oh, it's gone. It'll come back as somebody else is talking. What else did anybody else have to say? Go
On a
ahead.
quick side note, with my current systems, I've adopted newborn fry from other people that tried raising them. You know you're in for a ride when you have over 300 bouncing baby seahorses. And then you get a call from the same person a few weeks later and said, I've got some more here for you.
Geez. I remember what I was going to say. What I was going to say is the reason that the tubs, well, actually, there's multiple reasons if you want to do this like long term that the tubs are beneficial. Go watch that video with Cheryl because she talks about the tubs and the circular and why it's so important. But I'll tell you, in my opinion, the main reason that the tubs work is the sump. Because if you have a sump on a fry tank, you're able to keep the fry in a smaller system where you can feed them more adequately and not have the artemia going everywhere. And yet you can have the skimmer and the K1 maybe, or whatever filtration you use. You can have more filtration, more water volume because of the sump. That is key long term. But you can't do it with sponge filter and water changes. Go ahead, Vincent.
Another thing with the tubs is you don't have to worry about the stuff collecting on the bottom of the tub. At least in mine, they don't, because the water's circling and it's keeping it suspended and it's going through the mesh or getting caught on there. Because I have different tubes, I just yank one out and put another one in.
Yeah,
and then you can clean it. And yeah, so the bottom stays clean.
And it's one of those things where if you get once you've been doing it for a while, you're kind of on autopilot when you're raising fry because you know you've got to get in there and get that filter stock out of there. If you're using a filter stock, you know you've got to double check and clean your skimmer on a regular basis. I have spares of everything because when I decide to clean something, it's going to get cleaned, and I need to replace that immediately anyway. And it's just it's habit anymore.
Sure. One last thing I have to say, if you're going to continue with the tanks, sponge filters, and a lot of water changes, and you want to succeed, a trick Holly and I came up with when we were doing it that way is when you do the water changes, don't just do a water change. Get a magic eraser. That's our trick, but you can use whatever you want. Make sure you clean the bottom of the tank, the sides of the tank, every surface area in that tank. Clean it, then do your 90% water change or whatever. Because the gunk stick it. Well, we always forget to say that, and it's really important that you clean the sides and the bottom.
Well,
and Zen Ginger had. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I was going to say, it's even like when I clean nurseries. First thing I do is go in with a brush and clean up the sides, and then I push everything into any kind of debris or anything that's in that nursery into one spot. And then all I do is I just suck it all out. And it helps me. I'm going to suck some babies into the dang bucket, but I can get them out pretty quick.
Mine went for many rides in the siphon hose.
Right. It's a ride.
I used to collect my reed-eye with a siphon hose. I would collect them. I would just siphon them out. And
but you don't want anything in your mouth, so don't do it the way he just said. I did a video once where I talked about a siphon. And I showed myself doing the siphon, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, don't do that!" And I was like, "I know you're not supposed to." Anyways, okay, it is 10:06. Ray has something to say, and then I'm going to ask Zen Ginger's question. Ray, I saw you commented, but I didn't see. It doesn't show on it. Wait, what's
just
the?
Wondering, when I try to post a link on there, it won't come up. So I'm just wondering if you can post that.
Sure. What's the link to?
That's Dan's. How to successfully raise a high percentage of fry.
Oh, yes, that's an excellent video. And I just posted it in the links. And David, come back. If you ever want to join in and show us your tanks, there's no judgment here. As I said, we've all done things differently and we have different ways of succeeding. We'd love to have you jump in some week in the video with us and chat with us, or absolutely in the comment section. Okay, guys, but it is 10:07. I got to work tomorrow.
And David, that video is fairly long. but you're not going to find
Yes.
anybody more knowledgeable. And the thing is not to do everything exactly the way Dan does it, but to get ideas on how to set up your own
And
system
why.
to accomplish the same thing.
This video,
And why.
this particular video, and several others are also available on the Facebook page, Seahorse Sources Group.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
you don't necessarily
should be
have to
part of
go
it.
to YouTube or one of those to get that stuff.
Well, most of the people watching right now is YouTube people, but I hear you. Good point, Cheryl. Okay, last question, because I got to work tomorrow. Boo.
It was not my
Ginger
fault. I was
said,
off.
No. Zen Ginger said, is there any benefit in saltwater seahorses considering the extra expense besides looks? And Gina did respond, and Gina would know better than probably us. She said acrylic tanks are lighter, and when you have the bigger tanks, the acrylic doesn't have to be as thick as glass would be. But acrylic seahorse is a lot easier.
Scratches
what do you guys
a lot
think?
easier. Yeah, because I have both.
Scratches.
My display tank is acrylic. Yeah, it scratches. My display tank is acrylic, and the tiki tank is glass. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. I like my acrylic tank better in that my overflow's built into it, and it's all like there's different ways of looking at it. Like the glass can break, or the seams, after many years come out. But I had an acrylic tank break once too, that it wasn't one solid piece. Like my display tank is a solid piece of acrylic, but I had an acrylic tank last year that was not, and literally came unsplit. Yeah. So I mean, it all depends on the tank. A good tank is a good tank, I think, whether it's glass or acrylic.
Well,
that's why I'm always jealous, because people talk about getting used tanks, but I've always been terrified to do that. But I've never had an acrylic tank. I've always used glass.
I'll take acrylic over glass any day.
Because?
Well, one is lighter. It's clearer. To me, it looks clearer. They don't scratch that easy if you're careful. Because I've mentioned it before, my tank's going to be 30 years old the end of the summer. And it's been set up not by me. It was in a shop of a friend of mine, and he had it in the shop from the time he opened until he moved the shop, and then he gave it to me. And no scratches. And this was in a commercial business.
I'm letting you finish. I was just going to say, I can definitely vouch for the thickness and the heaviness. This is my 90-gallon. It's the SCA Starfire. And by the way, I'm not currently using it. So if anyone wants to buy it and you're near me, I'd be happy to sell it. However, I know. That's why I said anybody near me. I was going to follow that up with, however, you have to bring your own crew to pick it up and get it out of the house. Because when the guy traded me that tank, because I was doing fry, and that became my adolescent tank, which I should keep it because I'll probably need it because I'm going to have Vincent fry soon. But I traded my beautiful, huge, like big as my head clam that was in my reef tank, Dursa clam. Oh, it was so pretty. It killed me to trade that. But I traded my clam and a couple other things for this tank. But them getting it in was unreal. It took like 4 men. So I can vouch for that. Guys, we do have to go. But there was one other question. Seahorse Mammy wanted to know, is a 40-gallon all-in-one good for 4 seahorses? And will you have to do less water change with an all-in-one? I'm going to take that question because I'm currently trying to prove that you can do seahorses in all-in-one. My 5 seahorses are in my all-in-one. However, that is not permanent, and I'm having to do massive water changes, even though I have an overrated skimmer, K1 media, rock, a UV sterilizer, all that stuff in the compartments. I'm still having to do math. I found ammonia in the tank last week. I couldn't believe it. But it's because I've got 5 seahorses in a 40-gallon, and there's no sump. So I would absolutely absolutely say if you're new or if you're trying to have less maintenance, the answer is no. You can do it, but it is more work. It is more water changes, even with fancy schmancy equipment. Oh, and I have the char chamber in the front of the tank. So, but I am planning on only having 3 in that tank. You could possibly do 4. You have to watch previous One Wednesdays to learn why it's overloaded right now. But I would not advise it for anyone. And I would say with an all-in-one, you're not going to do less water. Anytime you can do a sump, it's going to be better. I'm trying to prove you can do an all-in-one for people who can't do a sump. But if I had my choice, I would do a sump always. Was that a
You'll
good?
I think
probably
it's
end up
just
doing
more
water
labor.
Wait, what, Ray?
I think they would do more water changes because it's an all-in-one.
Yes.
Equipment
Yeah.
is taking up, it's not 40 gallons anymore.
Yeah.
True
Mhm.
that too. Yeah, I didn't even think of that answer, but you're absolutely right. So even though there's equipment doing work back there, it's taking up water volume, and the organics can build up really quick, and I'm proof of it because I found an ammonia reading last week. I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy crap. And I immediately did a water change and everything was fine. But I would say if you're going to try that, have test kits, good test kits, have water available, ready to go, because you're going to do more water changes. You'd be better off doing a sump or less seahorses. Because when I only had 2 or 3, everything was fine, no problems. But as soon as there was 5, there was problems. All right, I think we've covered as much as we can cover tonight, you guys. And Ginger's giving me the cheers, and I'm gonna have to cheers you guys anyways because I gotta go. But appreciate you guys. You know I do. Every single person who comes every week. Thank you. Please give us a like, thumbs up, whatever, and make sure you're subscribed. And we will be back next week with Robert King and his Robert King Chamber to talk more about that. And then the following week we'll be back to open chat probably, unless I get Herb from US Mysids to come. We'll see when he's available. But appreciate you all. So glad we're
Let me know. I'll wear his
community.
T-shirt for her when we peak stage.
Oh, look at that. Wait, let me make you big, Cheryl. Look at that. I got a black one. Ooh, I like the white one. But yeah, everybody wants to know where to get live Mysids. Holly just told you where, and Cheryl just showed you the name. But anyways, we'll be back next week. As always, everybody say Happy Wine Wednesday.
Wine Wednesday.
Happy